What time is it? It's 10. Paul, are you ready, big boy?
Trying to figure out how to get rid of that blinking thing. No, there we go. The notification.
Okay, so I think I'll also we'll see if this takes a full hour, everybody, but I think we might not go a full hour just because I think the subject matter is pretty well understood at this point with when it comes to MechWarrior 5, and we've already talked about it, and we will be discussing sort of some new information here today, and so we'll have to kind of go over that in detail, and then you guys ask some questions on it, but I wouldn't be shocked if we're kind of running dry before an hour's up. But let's jump into it. So thank you for coming. Welcome. Those of you guys that have joined us for AMAs in the past, you will remember how we've described Mechlab for MechWarrior 5 in the past. We've kind of gone to fairly great lengths to make sure everyone understands that the MechWarrior 5 Mechlab experience is quite different from MechWarrior Online. MechWarrior Online is very, very robust. I mean, it is, kind of, amazing when you think about it. It's pretty much everything you could ever possibly imagine doing inside of a Mechlab on a MechWarrior game, you can do. So that works well for MechWarrior Online. It is what MechWarrior Online is, I suppose you could say, and it's all about that customization to the nth degree, and the number of combinations you can bring into the PvP arena is kind of what MechWarrior Online has become. So that works really well. But in designing MechWarrior 5, we wanted to make MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. And the key design goals of MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries was to take it much further than any Mercenaries game has gone before. And by that, I mean the freedom of how you play the game, where you travel to, what contracts you choose, the missions you take, the mechs you buy, the pilots you hire, every decision you make, just giving significantly more choice than you've ever had in the Mercenaries game before. But in order to make this sort of this type of experience really work, we felt really strongly that it needed to be very heavily based on this free market system that you'd find in the inner sphere. And every time you go to a system and you visit the market, you're exploring it with interest to see what items and, of course, what battle mechs are on the market, and if there is any, and so on and so forth. And if you had the type of MechWarrior or Mechlab freedom that you had in MechWarrior Online, we'd very, very quickly get to a point where it's like, well, I'm not interested in many of the chassis showing up or many of the variants showing up, because we have such extreme freedom in the Mechlab that we can basically create all these other variants, and really kind of negates a lot of the interest in exploration and discovery of like, oh my goodness, there's the Centurion CN9D. Like, I really wanted that one there. There's a lot of examples we could give. So we had announced for a long time that when it came to the Mechlab, there's certain things you could do. Like you could decide, well, I really don't want that small laser on my head. I don't really use it. I'm going to pull that off, and I'm going to put an extra half ton of armor on my mech. Or I'm going to reduce armor and put more heat sinks. I'm going to remove these weapons and then do armor and heat sinks. I don't think I need that much ammunition. I'm going to pull some ammunition off and increase armor. And you could do quite a lot, but you couldn't change out weapons. So weapons were, if you had a medium laser on the right arm, that was a medium laser slot, and you could choose to have it or not have it, but the only thing that went in there was a medium laser. So we have made a change. It was just I don't know, maybe a month ago, and I think we kind of felt for most of the development of this game that some sort of change to go a little bit further than that was probably fairly likely, but we just wanted to really let the game kind of develop and percolate and be developed under that design philosophy that I just discussed. But after having, that settle in for as long as it had, we finally made the decision to make a change and to go a little bit further with the Mechlab. We briefly discussed going with the full um, missile energy ballistic hardpoint system, so there would be no inflation of the hardpoints, but energy is energy, and ballistic's ballistic. We didn't quite go that far. What we ended up with was, I guess you can think of it as like a sized hardpoint system, but it's not the type of sized hardpoint system that allows you to balloon balloon hardpoint. So if you have a large missile slot, for example, with a LRM-20 in it, what you're allowed to do is put anything that is designated as a large missile slot item in there. And that could be, for example, LRM-15s and LRM-20s. What you can't do is say, well, I can then put 2 medium missile things in there, or like 3 small things in there, and balloon hardpoints like that. But you can put anything in there that is designated as large missile hardpoint. And that goes for anything ballistic and energy too. So the example of ballistic is, say you got a small ballistic hardpoint of an AC-2. There's quite a bit more freedom than you had before, because I'm just going to bring up a link here. Now, AC2's quite a bit of tonnage. You have, 7 tons, I think it is. So you can remove that now for other items in the small ballistic category, like a machine gun. In the medium category, perhaps the most flexibility in ballistic, things like, and this could change a little bit through balance testing, kind of like what we put in which category, but these are our initial thoughts. Medium, you got things like AC5, AC10, LB10X, UAC5. So there's quite a bit of flexibility there in, going up or down in tonnage and shifting your mech. So this is a lot more, flexibility than you once had. Large energy, for example, large laser, large pulse, ER large, PPC. So this kind of accomplishes a couple things. One, it just gives the players quite a bit more reason and meaning to the Mechlab, but also ends up supporting our game theory quite a bit better, because if you're to get like a mech with a Gauss rifle, there could be situations where when a mech gets damaged and loses its Gauss, or even AC-20 or something a little more on the expensive side, and maybe it's a little more on the rare side when it comes to salvage and free market, there's more options to get that mech fixed. So if you get some mech 2 that you find in the story that has some rare, large pulse lasers, or Gauss rifles, then you have other things that you could put in those slots to kind of keep that mech functioning. So I think that's clear. So that's really the big change. Everything else remains the same that we've talked about in the past, but what we have here is a sized hardpoint system, and anything that belongs to that particular sized hardpoint category can go in that slot. Did I do okay there, Paul?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's great. Yeah, let's open it up and see how clear that was.
All right. And the channel's open.
Holy crap.
Yeah, hopefully there's some stuff here that isn't, too pre-prepared, but actually the first one's a good question, I think. Okay, this actually might have been pre-written, but let's try to get through it. So Darth Leacom, what time is it now? 10:10. Okay. My current understanding of weapon customization: the hard points are weapon specific. So this is a pre-prepared question. This is why I want them written afterwards, if you can. They're not weapon specific anymore. They are hardpoint size specific. So your example here is incorrect at this point, although in this case, going from medium to a large is still correct, because a large laser is a large hardpoint and medium-sized one. So medium to medium pulse, large to large pulse to PPC, etc. You can't go down in size, as I mentioned. Like he says, can a weapon be exchanged for smaller type? No, like a large missile slot can do, he says LRM 20 to LRM 10. No, but you can do LRM 20 to LRM 15 because those are both large missile types. On the AC-20 side, 20 to 5, no. But 20 to Gauss, that AC-5 slot could do 10 UAC-5s, LB-10X. So there's quite a few combinations for the missile slot. And by the way, this is, I should mention, this was the fruit of quite a lot of internal debate. We have at least several fairly hardcore, MWO players still that are very, very strong opinions about this. And so, to my surprise, when I was the one who briefly floated, like, well, maybe we just go all the way with the hard points, meaning we don't inflate them, but ballistic's just ballistic. If you can find the room, put any ballistic there. I thought everyone would latch onto that, but they really didn't. And a lot of people felt very strongly that that would negate various aspects of the game. And I really do feel like we came up with kind of the best middle ground to kind of keep this market system alive, but to give a lot more meaning in the Mechlab. So anyhow, will there be a skill tree similar to what is currently implemented in MWO? No, nothing like that. You do have a full pilot skill system, both for you and for the pilots you hire. And then, of course, even the enemies you face have a level of piloting skills. This is very similar to what you've seen in other, whether it's Mech Commander or BattleTech and, other MechWarrior games where you've got your piloting, gunnery, and we've got our gunnery separated out. There's gunnery in general, but there's also like missile, ballistic, and energy. And so there's all these skills, but those skills are basically auto, increased as you fight. So as you fight and play, both you and your lance mates naturally go up based on what you're doing in the level. So anyway, that was a little bit separated from Mechlab, so I'll try not to answer many more of those.
Just to touch on something really quickly for clarification on the restrictions of hardpoint sizes, is that it's about size. So every single weapon type, ballistic, missile, and energy, will have 3 categories as well, being small, medium, and large. None of those categories can be intermixed with each other. So a medium will never ever go into a small slot, or small hardpoint, sorry. A large cannot go into small, obviously. Smalls cannot go into mediums or larges, right? It's restricted to the size of the weapon, right? That's why you're going to have things like the missile systems, small missile system being LRM 5s, SRM 2s, streaks, probably SRM 4s as well. They will not mix into a medium missile category, which might be the LRM 10s and the SRM 6s, right? So you have to keep in mind that it's allowing you to swap out, for example, different manufacturers, something like that, or it could be anything that's of the same size. I guess that's kind of confusing this situation, but just keep that in mind, is like each weapon type has a size, and those sizes are not interchangeable.
Yeah, I think there's, it becomes clear that there's some really, in some ways you think, well, there's not a lot to do, but then you also, on the other breath, you can say, wow, that's a lot more, because if you have a particular mech which has like an LRM 10, like say a Centurion, being able to swap that LRM 10 to a SRM 6, for example, or SRM 4/6, I forget which one it is, I think 6, that's pretty significant, right? That's a very significant change for a mech that you can now do with this system, and that, you might want to go full brawl with your autocan 10 or SM6 medium lasers, and would be a very common sort of MWO type thing to do. So that's now possible, and I think that's one of the better examples to say, oh wow, that's a pretty big change now that you can do.
Yeah, it's not like it's hard limited like MechWarrior 4, and it's not as open as MechWarrior.
Okay, so let's move along. Will we get a screenshot or two of the Mechlab Brothers mini screens? Yeah, you can soon. Good news is, obviously, the game's getting very close to completion finally, and we've been working on it for a long time. And as we move along here, the next couple months, marketing will start to pick up, and the front end of the game is, finally getting to a state, and is in a state, and is getting to a state of where, all that work is finished up front, so we can share it. So, don't hold your breath exactly. I'm not talking here any second, but we're getting really close to seeing, front end also. So put in the final plans on a marketing plan in this coming week, and then doesn't mean you start to see stuff right away. You look at most games, honestly, it's really vast majority is in the final month, but we want to start marketing it as much as everybody does and as much as they want to see it. So screens of the front end pretty soon. Lost tech would depends exactly what you mean by lost tech. I think it's probably missing except for potential hero mechs, but I mean, the game follows a timeline, so the best way to answer that is really 3015 to 3049, and the mechs are introduced when they appear in that timeline. So you do get things like, at first you might just have your streak 2s or something, and then later on you get into some of the other bits of new weaponry as you get closer to 3049. So that's primarily how it happens. So there is a bit of introduction. It's not stuck in 3015. So you go from 3015 to 3049. So you can just think of it like that as the introduction of the technology up to that point for the inner sphere. If we were to mod in more hard points on the mechs, would we have to model the weapon mounts on them as well? I'm a little bit hesitant to answer this. Like, I really think the answer is no. Like, I think that the mechs, as brought over from MWO, have these capabilities in them. So I'm going to give that with a strong asterisk, but I don't think there'd be modeling required. I think if we wanted to go this way, like, for example, like if you wanted to inflate hard points like MWO, like, I think that'll work with the models. But I mean, make a note, Paul. We'll try to follow up on that and give Matt the answer. But I think that's been answered in the past by Ryan and some others, and that was the answer, but I'm not positive.
I'd also imagine that it'd depend on the weapon, like sticking an LRM-20 onto the arm of an Irby might be a little bit.
Sure, I guess I should caveat that with, if my answer is correct, it would be in the way that it works in MWO. Certainly if it goes kind of beyond MWO in some way that we never modeled for MWO, then yeah, you'd probably have to model that for. Kinds of equipment can we expect to find? I mean, again, anything from 3015 to 3049, I think is in the game. I mean, there's a few exceptions. Like, we didn't put as many of the bits and pieces in, like, Beagle Active Probe and a lot of these things that just don't really find an interesting hole to exist in. Like in PvP, it's great. It's like you counter them like this. But when it comes to working with AI systems, it's a little bit different and not as noticeable by players. So some of the little bits of equipment, no, but primarily it's, again, look at the timeline. That's the equipment you'll see. There's no Bitch and Betty in the lab, so there won't be changing that voice. Is the Mechlab free roam in first person like it was shown in the trailer? Well, yeah, it behaves exactly like it is in the trailer. The trailer was taking footage from the game, but there's maybe just a bit of a misunderstanding there. Like, the Mechlab itself is like a UI interface, but when you're done, like when you're not in the UI interface, when you take yourself out of the UI interface, you do exist, full time in the real 3D environment, and it's just the entire Leopard dropship. You walk around all the entire Leopard Bay with all 4 mechs, and you walk up to the top area where the the mission table is and all sorts of things. So you basically just walk around and exist in this 3D world, but have the ability to walk up to a console to enter the UI interface where you interface with the Mechlab, you interface with contract screen and the star map, and everything gets interfaced. But then, yeah, you walk around the 3D world, so you can make your changes. You come back from a mission, you're gonna see your damaged mechs and how brutal they look, and then you're gonna get repairs done, and all that happens in a 3D space. Will there be an in-universe installation of components, repair of damage, time delays, and biotech? Yeah, certainly. You come back with, 8 days worth of repairs, and it's going to take 8 days. And so you can always advance the clock. Time advancement happens when you travel and various things, but you can always, advance the clock before you go on a mission. It's just obviously you have to pay your monthly bills, so you want to manage your time. And I think we whether it's another AMA or some things that we reveal here down the stretch, but I feel like I'm very happy with the way the metagame is shaping up, with the star map and the metagame, and there's a lot more meaning in where you travel, not only just for what's on the market, what pilots are for hire, but also in just like where you want to do your repairs, for reasons of cost and time, time costs and CBL costs. So there's a lot more meaning and reason for where you travel to, not just for mission purposes too, but also for shopping and repairing and etc. Mechlab screenshot soon. We get an option to paint our own pattern that comes in Mechlab. Yes, so you can apply a bunch of patterns and color wheel them as well. So yes. Timeline does not affect customization. Other than, I suppose, it's not totally true. As I'm not sure if I'm going to like this large pulse show up a little bit later, doesn't it? Like I'm a little rusty on this stuff, but when that shows up and it's a large energy hardpoint, then certainly yes, at that point you could put that large pulse laser into your large energy slot of a mech you already had. So yeah, and that way it does as the weapons get introduced, and you can do that.
Target acquired. New target acquired. Airstrike.
Lunar. So skipping here, would a large missile slot be limited to just LRMs only? No, it wouldn't. In fact, it's just a large missile slot. It's not a large LRM slot. It's a large missile slot, which means you could also put like an SRM6 in there. So you can go from SRM to LRM as long as they're both large missile slot items. And I think the example I gave is good. Like LRM 20 or LRM 15 or SRM 6 can all go in there.
Hey Russ.
Yeah.
So for the question about can you paint your own patterns, I'm concerned that he may interpret that as he can like get a paintbrush and paint it on his mech.
Oh, because he was talking about presets. I mean, not without modding, if that's what you meant. We have a whole bunch of patterns that you can apply, and then you can recolor them, all other channels via the color wheel like MWO. It's not like we have a paintbrush system built into the game. If that's what you meant, you'd have to create a mod if you want to create your entire own paint job. Maybe that's what he meant, Matt. I'm not sure, but.
Target destroyed. New target acquired. Airstrike.
Expound on Salvage a bit.
New target acquired.
If you lose it left torso, you would lose the salvage. That isn't. Does he mean if when you take damage left torso, or when you blow left torso off of another mech? Okay, well I think first off, there's a lot of salvage. the way we have a lot of balance work left to do here, so I think we're going to continue to tune this. But there's plenty of salvage items showing up on the list. You're certainly not going to be able to salvage anywhere close to all of it in many cases. You're making your choices. But I believe the pool is created based on the items on the battlefield that are still not destroyed. But there's kind of exceptions to that, like, and then still it's only taking a percentage chance of what's left there. And I think, single health pool type things, like every time you blow up a vehicle or a turret and various things like that, they're destroyed, right? Like they just blow up. So those items and those weapons and things are still given a chance to show up in the pool as well. So it's not strictly like, I guess I'll answer it this way, and I think this is what you're getting at. You don't have to play a certain way to make salvage show up. Like, you don't need to, like, oh my goodness, I have to only double leg everything so like salvage shows up. I don't think the system's created that way at all. So you can fight, you can core these mechs, you can destroy everything in sight in the most efficient way possible, and there's still going to be plenty of salvage on the market. And that includes mechs. Like, when mechs do show up, that's tuned. They're not we want to be very careful about how many mechs are showing up in the salvage table, but when they show up, it's based on our percentage systems and things like that. It doesn't matter if they were cored, because in our game, engines are not fully destroyed and have to be replaced like MWO. It's always repaired. So like a cored chassis can always be fully repaired. You may have to replace all the weaponry and everything on it, but the engine, the chassis itself can be repaired. So hopefully that answered your question. Are there going to be microtransactions? There's absolutely nothing planned at this point. I'm going to be careful not to say never, but I mean probably never. We don't have any plans for that. Our only plans are for more traditional DLC. So that'll be more in the form of just what I said, just like, here's DLC with maybe it's a miniature secondary campaign, or a few hours of missions and quest missions and packaged up under some story and sold as like a traditional DLC expansion. Not there's no plans at this point still for microtransactions. There's no negative quirks. I'm just going to answer this part of the question. It's really more, a little more on the line of like the way Battletech did it. Like we have weapons that are of higher level, and maybe this is a time for me to kind of mention that there is, I think it'll probably make the final cut for the game, but it's something we've been playing with, that we've kind of expanded the weapon table a little bit in a way. Like we've got, for example, you can get like an autocannon 10, or you can get the autocannon 10 burst fire. And we find that it just kind of adds a little more variety of preference to how a person wants to play, or maybe like how the interpretations of like what an autocannon 10 should be. Is it, we've seen different descriptions in lore in the past, like whether it's a single shell or more like a a bang 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 thing. And we've got these burst fire autocannons we're in the game at the moment that we're testing and playing with. So that's an example of, I think that's more the way we're going with manufacturer type thinking, trying to come up with a way that we see a lot more sort of meaning as to what they are, and not just some miniature sized quirk difference that really is indiscernible. So that's the best I can answer your question at the moment. Those things are being finalized, but I think it's interesting for everyone to hear that there are levels to the weapons as you go through the game, and also there are some different types of how they shoot. Will the Mechlab be moddable? I mean, everything's moddable. The answer is a simple yes, I believe. I mean, it's really up to the skill of the modder and the engineers that are. Hard points like MechWarrior 4. Kinda, I guess, in a way, but I think in MechWarrior 4 you could still inflate the hard points, meaning if I remember correctly, you could pull out that big LRM-20 and then you could put like 2 LRM-10s in it, kind of thing. You can't do that. You can think of it similar to MechWarrior 4 without the ability to inflate hard points. So if it's a large missile hard point, you can pull it out and put anything in there that's a large hard point, large missile hard point, but you can't inflate the hard point. How will this affect things like heat sinks and auxiliary equipment? I'm not sure that it necessarily affects them. I mean, as far as heat sinks and such, it just means you could always take off heat sinks and add extra ones if you had the tonnage for them. That's always kind of been the case.
Well, if they are talking about how many slots are available after you pull a, say, a Gauss rifle off of an arm, that number of slots won't change. So if there's 3 heat sinks in that arm, or sorry, 2 heat sinks in the arm with, us, say, an AC-20, so the AC-20 takes up 10 of the original slots. That those 2 slots will still be there after you pull the AC-20 off, right? And you put a Gauss on there, it'll still be 2 slots.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when we made this, the slot, we kind of had to find a set number of slots to represent the hard point. And that doesn't change dynamically based on whether it's an AC-2 or a machine gun in that particular slot. But really, honestly, it doesn't. That really didn't come into play with MechWarrior 5 like you might imagine if you think about MWO. And MWO, you were like looking for slots all the time because you were, doing these virus updates and endosteel and all these things, and the slots were so like precious. But I feel like in MechWarrior 5, you always have plenty of slots to kind of do what you want to do with the tonnage you have based on this system. Doesn't really feel like there's ever a battle for a slot to find a place for a heatsink or something like that.
Yeah, and with this system, actually, you're going to notice that some of the mechs have extra slots rather than less.
Yeah, because that example would be like Gauss to AC-20 or whatever, whichever one had less slots than the other, and you've got extra ones in that case. But okay, I'm gonna move along. Will there be Omni hard points similar to how they were in for? No, I don't remember that from Mech 4, but I believe you. You can't go from large laser to SRM6. It's in that case, large lasers, a large pulse to PPC, etc., or SRM6 to LRM15, LRM20, stuff like that.
Target spotted. Target spotted.
Airstrike online.
That's correct. Bugged out. Can't. Can you mount ammo in half-ton increments? That's a great question. Can you? I need to go remind myself. I'm not sure. Paul, do you know? I'm gonna have to figure that out. I don't know if we've done half. If we haven't, there's probably no reason we couldn't. So I'll follow up on that.
I can turn around and smack Derek.
Yeah, or even Dave there. They might say no, but just follow up them. Say, is there any reason why it's probably a situation where we never actually talked about and decided we weren't going to. We just, had thought of it at this point, or didn't think it was, something that was pressing.
The breaking news, Derek just ran over here and said, yes, we do have half-ton.
There you go. That's why I have Derek around. He remembers stuff I hadn't noticed. I guess I hadn't been doing that when I was doing my own modifications. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer questions like how would it be to implement and mod a system to do this or that, the hard points, because I'm the wrong guy to ask. I know you guys are dying for a modding AMA. We're going to do our best with that. As you know, with the adjustments to EGS, our modding plans are a little bit different, and They're going to be coming online, much more closer to the, very end of the year or slightly early into the next year. So I don't have some of these answers right now, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want to say that would be easy, but I just want to be careful here. So let's hold those. Can you capture enemy mech pilots? No, there's no capturing of the enemies. You do have some situations in the storyline where you, might get a pilot or something, but no, it's you get up there and hire them. They can get injured, they can die, so you're gonna have a need in the game to keep a nice large stable of mechs and pilots available for missions. Like I said, I think there's a lot more interest in the metagame that's evolving in MechWarrior 5, where there's more reason to keep a large stable around, so that based on where you are and in the war zones or industrial hubs, and I've kind of dropped some hints there, you might not want to travel right away because it costs money to travel, so you need to have enough inventory of all types to take on more than a couple missions perhaps to before you take on the expense of more like maybe a refit run. So a few hints there for you that has nothing to do with Mechlab. Why did I answer that? Zed, no. I'm gonna say no on that. Olzag, thank you for coming from Switzerland. Not related to Mechlab, but I'll answer it anyhow. Yes, you can command your team very much like MechWarrior 4. Yeah, it's very similar. We're not reinventing the wheel there. It's we didn't want to go too far with that. It would have been there's plenty of ideas, but then you quickly devolve into sort of like a more of a, what do you call those games, like where you're commanding.
RTS.
Yeah, or even just like when you, I'm looking for a particular term where you're like a SWAT 4 type thing, where you're like commanding your guys with so much granularity. No, this is an action game. This is a MechWarrior game, and you can command them though. It's like follow, hold your fire, attack your target. There's just some basic commands. You've seen those in the demos that we've, MechCon and stuff like that.
Target acquired.
Target spotted.
Target destroyed.
Snake 509. I like the question. He's just like, would consider having your current size hardpoint system combined with the fixed type system, single large laser drop down to a single medium laser instead of. So basically, no ballooning, but you can maybe still put the smaller ones into the larger ones, but a single one. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, but like the problem with these types of ideas, it's not so much that like that particular idea might be feasible in the same sort of balance sense of this marketplace we're trying to achieve, et cetera. And like, let's say it is, it would probably negate a few more variants and things, but let's say that wasn't the big concern. The problems with those types of ideas is they just kind of die on the UI design table. It's just like, how in the Sam hell do you communicate this? Like we have, this is large, this is a large goes in large, medium goes in medium. Like you can make that happen, but when you get into that system, if you're not going to blue the hard points, then it's like you have to show, okay, this goes in here, but also here. It gets very difficult really fast. So someone like you would get used to it right away, but someone who's not familiar with MechWarrior would be it's complex enough. We've been, I know there's a lot of people out there saying when are you going to market the game, and there's so many people out there that really want this game to be successful so we can continue to have more MechWarrior games, and that's great. I appreciate the support and all that. That also means that we as hardcore MechWarrior players have to kind of maybe take a few things not as complex as we might want them so that others can actually understand the game and play it. So I think there's a good amount there of Mechlab work for them to get involved in. Can we add jump chest to any mech? No, that part, I hope I'm correct here, I think I am. It's similar to MWO in that, if you have a jump jet mech, it's got like whatever the base loadout is. Let's say it's got 4 of these jump jets on it, and you can take them off. You can go down to 1 or 2 or whatever, and use the extra tonnage and stuff. But you can't just like pull a jump jet. It's like a hard point on the mech that's a jump jet hard point, and you can slide it into that spot. So I believe they only go in those spots too, so that you can put the jump jets in or take them off, but you can't add them to like a dragon in your example. Crit slot. Yeah, it's directly
Reactor
tied to the
online.
weapon size.
Sensors online.
So
Weapons online.
if it's like 8 slots or whatever,
All
then it's
systems
8 slots.
nominal.
For anything in that
Engage.
category. Gun bucket. I think I just answered that. No, there isn't any overlap. I've often kind of had that thinking too. And, like you're saying, like I just answered here kind of long, so I won't do it again. But like, we kind of have to draw the line at like, okay, here's how this will work with the visuals of the UI and the front end, and without having to, have paragraphs to read on each weapon or something. So no, if AC2 is a small, it goes in small. AC5 is medium, goes into medium, etc.
Target spotted.
Yes, there will, McLord. There are pretty much precisely what you're saying. It's
New target acquired.
we call them levels in our game, but it's similar to a ++ type situation.
Target spotted.
UAV activated. New target acquired.
Inventory is pretty much just a straight up wave our hands thing. Right now, there's
New
no
target acquired.
complexity of like you can only take 500 tons or whatever.
New target acquired.
Maybe it's not impossible to see something like that introduced before the game ships if we feel like maybe there's a situation where it gets just kind of ridiculous as throwing balance out or something. But we had a lot of thoughts and designs about this over the years, and most of them lead to just so much unnecessary complexity. So at the moment, it's really a your mechs are limited. At the moment you've got 12 deployable,
New target acquired.
and there's a cold storage type system as well. But is when it comes to inventory, no, there's no limit at the moment.
New target acquired.
I don't know, Matt. That's a pretty sweet idea there for you. I'm not gonna say yes now, but
Target
I like.
acquired.
Which one's that?
Death Sight says, can we get a Matt Newman weatherman green screen style presentation of the UI?
No.
Okay, Matt says no.
Maybe
Can-
Paul. Paul would make a better weatherman than I would.
I'll let you guys fight over it.
Damage.
Can use 2 joysticks. I use in some games my 2s.
New
Blah blah
target
blah.
acquired.
Paul, can we do that?
Target destroyed.
We do have HOTA support, but I'm not sure if the second joystick will be as a second joystick. Like
Yeah.
the API for
New target
joystick control
acquired.
in Unreal isn't that robust, and there's a lot of custom stuff.
Destroyed.
Yeah, we basically, unfortunately, Unreal's great for being a multi-platform engine that people take their games from PC to console, and so it's very good for their basic console style controllers or whatever. But yeah, all the work we've done thus far is we had to do a lot of that work ourselves, and so we do support the full HOTA system, as you saw at MechCon, a joystick with the throttle. So I don't know how it would behave. Maybe you get the second joystick to behave like a throttle, so you push forward and backward and such. That's a question for Graham, and seems feasible, but not preferable to the throttle probably.
New
Omid
target
just ran over here and
acquired.
told me that yes, you can do 2 throttle, 2.
Okay, so you just have one kind of behave like a
New
throttle,
target
I imagine.
acquired.
There you go. If you prefer that, or that's what you have and you want to run with it,
New
sounds like you
target acquired. Target destroyed.
can. No, there's really not
Acquired.
anything with engines, Sylvie, in this game. We did not want to go down a path of having 1,001 engines in the marketplaces. Like, a lot of decisions we made in this game too was like thinking about this market system and like, what do you want to
Target
see
destroyed.
on the
New
market? Do you
target
want to see
acquired.
so much stuff that you're scrolling through it for like hours and days? So, no, engines are set. It helps us differentiate between the chassis too, and look, this 50-ton mech to that 50-ton mech, and so you want a
Destroyed.
fast 60-ton
New
heavy,
target
get the dragon.
acquired.
If you want a slow one, you get the other type. And they engines are, your mech can be totally destroyed and cored, but
Target destroyed.
that chassis is always, that might cost millions of C-bills to repair, but you can always repair them up. So there's no swapping engines. Preset model for modding, is that what he's saying? Sorry, it's not really related to Mechlab. I would just quickly say, like, this is an Unreal game, so like you get the editor, and the process is pretty well understood out in the modding community. You could probably get your feet wet up there with Arc or a lot of these Unreal games if you want to really learn a lot about how to mod an Unreal game. It's going to be a lot of similarities. I like the question, LBX ammo, cluster and slug. No, we didn't do that though, because I did mention here today where we've got like some like burst fire autocannons and regular shell autocannons, so that's kind of what you're saying. But when it comes to the LBXs and the way they're going to stand out from being an autocannon 10 is that they're like a shotgun. Sorry, Bob. I'm just reading your question again. Make sure I understand. Oh, yeah. Yeah, as much as I kind of, the old school guy in me sort of loved the notion of like, you have to run there to do that, and you have to run in your office to do that, and there's actually very little of that in the game. There's like some of the things that you do for the very first time. We kind of have you go to a particular console, but after that, the game really is the console's a console. So you can interface with everything you want to do from any console. So you could be down next to your Centurion, for example, interface there, go to the Mechlab screen and handle all your mechs, and even go to the star map and take a contract and travel and do anything you do from any of the consoles. So they're all over the place. We don't make you run all across the dropship every few seconds to go to a different console or anything like that. Rampage, does your tech give you some of that humor dialogue? There's a bit, definitely from the story perspective. He has a few things to say, so I'm being careful with the humor. The guys asked me like, how do you want the dialogue in this game? And I said, more Empire Strikes Back, less Return of the Jedi. So that's the only direction I've given, and they're trying to follow. Captain Kelsey, no, there isn't upgrades to your like your dropship and stuff like that. All like BattleTech has, which is really fun. I enjoyed that, but it worked really well for a turn-based strategy game like theirs. For us, we tried to build that interest into the metagame. So there are things you can do from a star map and a travel perspective that you'll need to manage in order to help you with your downtime and repair costs and things like that. No physical animations for installations. That'd be sweet, but no. Everything changes, and everything you change to the weapon types. You're going to see all that visually, of course, and you will see the damaged mech and then be repaired. And there was some cool ideas for a while there about, kind of like staged repairs, but the problem with it was, you have all these damaged states, but it's very difficult. Like when you're fighting, you see all these various forms of damage, from just like paint damage to armor's gone to limbs gone. But you really can't go in the reverse order, because when the arm's in a nearly blown off like structure only state, it looked like it's got the shit beat out of it. So when you're repairing it and then you reattach the arm, you can't really go in reverse order. So unfortunately, that was not something we were able to do. So we have a very detailed destruction model, and then you come in and you see all that destruction just as it was in the level. but your repairs are gonna, have to be just like when it's done, and it's repaired. Okay, a few more minutes. I'm gonna jump to gun bucket. Will there be cockpit and bolt-ons? No. No. There's nothing like that. Interesting idea. Who knows where we'll go with DLC, but no, there's nothing in the cockpit at this point. Sorry, Soul, I didn't mean to skip over. It's just there's a lot there, and no, these things just advanced zoom, not in the same way of like putting on something on your mech like an MWO that gives you advanced zoom, like you just have the levels of zoom. The rest of these things, gyros, hip actuators, these things you just have. There's not like additional or unique ones you can put on your mech. There's some interesting things to go there with DLC, perhaps, but you won't go there in the initial game. I'm gonna jump over to Sunder 2K prices. Great question. I think they're a set price. Like some of these things are just expensive, but I don't believe there's a notion of getting cheaper over time. For some of these things, I don't think. How much is mech repair time going to affect online play? It really shouldn't. Well, obviously, if you're doing instant action and you're playing with co-op with friends, there's no real repair time thing. If you have decided to invite your friend into your campaign, for example, even if a mech has a particular amount of repair time, it's always available to you to, wait and advance the, time for when that mech is repaired. So you can always continue to play the game in real time. You have to think of it like there's just always a cost. There's a cost in C-bills and there's a cost in time. So if you advance, 30 days to get it repaired because it was really beat up, and then you're just probably advancing straight to another monthly bill as well. So that wouldn't be very efficient. So the most efficient way would be, of course, to have lots of other mechs available that you can take out and, only do your repairs when you can go to more of an efficient spot. No, you won't be bringing any vehicles into your mech lab. Sorry. I think you probably knew that when you asked it, but I think we gave Bob a check mark, didn't we, a bit ago? He had two questions. I know the first one's on streaming. I just wasn't going to get into that now, but he had a second one I think we answered, so pretty sure he got his. Pulling off weapons don't get me more slots. No, I don't believe. I think that's a true statement. But you won't feel. I highly doubt there's a situation in the game where you're really going to feel that though and say, "Oh my goodness, I wish I can't believe this isn't giving me more slots." You're gonna have plenty of slots to do what you want to do with. Decorator chassis, very much like MWO when it comes to decorating. We've got a lot of patterns in the color wheel. And Ferrofiber Cento still is fixed. Like when those mechs come online that have it, they have it. Yeah, there's not swapping back and forth. And same with double heat sinks, single heat sinks. That's not a swap back and forth type thing. That's on particular. There's Derek saying yes to something. Derek, I can only see like a few questions away, but thanks for jumping in. Okay, 5 minutes left. I don't know. Might be done. There is Artemis 4. It's I believe with Artemis 4, it is done a little bit until Derek and these guys are listening. They can correct me if I'm wrong. It is a little different than MWO in that we don't It's not like a all or nothing upgrade thing, I don't believe, where you like upgrade your mech to it or something, or the mech just has it. I think there's separate weapon types that you can slip on. They may still take more tonnage, but they'll fit into those same weapon slots. So if it's a medium slot, it'll go into a medium slot, and it'll cost you the the extra tonnage or something. But you can. I think those Artemis 4 can go into any mech with the appropriate hard points. I think I'm correct. We'll get a correction in a second if I'm not. I don't believe there's any chassis that have empty hard points relative to their stock loadouts. No, they have their loadouts, and then there's no additional ones. There's no inflating going. Yeah, so no, like that's an MWO thing. MWO for various reasons, lots of different reasons, and I think we inflated hard points even from the very get-go, didn't we? Like when you brought in the initial like 4 mechs we had in the game, there might have been additional hard points. So no, we didn't. There's no inflating at all. So your Centurion has its ballistic missile and 2 energy. Will the urban mech have an upper limit on the armor you can put on it? No. Armor is just limited by, well, I mean, there's obviously the max armor level that every mech just has. So I guess the answer is yes, really, same as every other. What are the odds of see, this is a question I can get behind. What are the odds of completing the game with a Lance of Urbies? I would say if you do that, okay, I better be careful here. I was going to promise like trips to the studio and like all sorts of things, but someone will do it. So I would say no way in hell, but who knows? All right, I'm just skipping along here now. There's the final minutes. If I skip over you, I'm sorry, but I'm like time's getting close, and I'm just trying to find something really. If you have salvaged components, then they just put into your inventory as components. Like you just own them, just like you bought them. So I think that answers your question. Okay, Xeon0233. Will we be able to choose where weapons are on this? I think the answer to this one is a yes. I think we've got this answer in the past. So like, if it is a type of mech that has like 2 energy hard points and they're like here and here, like on the torso, and one's higher than the other, but you only want to have one of them, you can put it into the specific one. So it is the upper higher one. I think we've had that answered in the past, and that was a resounding yes. Okay, last question, Casey. Will we clearly easily see what size small, medium, large each weapon is, so we can easily see what would fit in? Yeah, it'll be so easy. It'll blow your mind. That's what's good about this system. It'll be very clear if it's medium, and it'll be very clear what's medium on your mech. So, that's it. I'm seeing lots of sort of like repeat stuff here now, or questions that are more like suggestions and stuff.
I like how we had some devs come in to confirm some of the answers. That was awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for them, and thank you to all you guys for coming. I guess we'll see you at 6 o'clock again. So if you didn't get your question answered and you think it was on point, then show back up then. And sorry if we didn't get to your question.
Thank you, everybody. See you at 6 tonight.
So I guess a brief overview of what's been going on. Earlier on, there was discussion about a Mechlab that was hardpoint restricted. And what they meant by hardpoint restricted was that an AC-20 was an AC-20 hardpoint. You would not be able to put an AC-5 there, not an AC-10, not anything except for an AC-20, which is very restrictive, but at the same time kind of keeps the lore of what a hardpoint is. That was kind of met with a little bit of frustration from both Russ and the team itself, right? Because that's a little bit too restrictive. On top of that, there is the fact that when you do have a restriction like that, it really makes the variant stand out for each mech chassis. But at the same time, no, not like pretty much nobody in the studio was a big fan of that. There were a couple of people who did like it, but most people didn't. We also didn't want to go the route of MechWarrior Online, which had a lot of hardpoint inflation, doing things like, oh, I'm going to pull this large laser out and I'm going to put 3 smalls in there, right, if they fit and you have the tonnage for it. And that pretty much caused all kinds of havoc in the mech lab. And when it came to gameplay balance and just overall mech builds, it just was the Wild West. And what came about was a big discussion with the dev team. Like everybody was involved with it, and we decided on kind of like a hybrid of the two. And that's the idea of a hardpoint size restriction. Now, a hardpoint size restriction. Crap! I forgot I closed a window here. Bear with me 1 sec. Just for transparency, it's ID number 1311. Let's see, full detail slots, wrong one. Okay, so let's try to walk this through. I know you guys are wondering what's this babbling idiot talking about, but here we go. Weapons will be divided into 3 of the weapon types. So that's ballistic, missile, and energy. Each of these weapon types will be divided into 3 different sizes: large, medium, and small. For example, a large ballistic would be considered the AC-20 or a Gauss rifle. Like these are all open to change for balancing purposes, but a ballistic medium, for example, could be an AC-5, AC-10, LB-10X, the UAC-5, and the ballistic smalls could be things like the AC-2 and the machine gun. The way this restriction works is that no weapon of a different size can be fit into a hardpoint. Now, let me explain that. If a mech has a AC-20 on it, that's a large ballistic slot. The only thing that will fit there is the AC-20 or the Gauss. You cannot take an AC-5 and stick it in that slot. You cannot take an AC-2 and put that in that slot. The same with missile systems. If you have a SRM-6, which could be considered a large missile system, you would not be able to put a SRM-2 in it. If you have a default loadout that's a missile system that's large, you have an LRM-20, for example. You won't be able to put an LRM-10. You can't put an SRM-2. You can't put an LRM-5. You have to stick with the size restriction. Other than that, there's UI support for that. I don't know. That's the best I can explain it to you right now without like a big spreadsheet of, I don't know, assignments of what weapons are where. But if you want to open up the questions, I can talk from there.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just going to end up blabbing, right? And it's not going to help anybody.
Right. So just keep in mind he'll skim through. He won't be able to get through every question and might skip over if he's not able to answer you. But the text channel is called 6 p.m. Mechlab AMA session.
Heat level critical.
And I'm going to open it right now.
Target acquired.
And that's going to preempt one thing. No, there aren't any horizontal things, so you can't replace a small into a medium or a medium into a small. Either way, right? A small is a small is a small.
Let's start from the top.
Okay.
Target destroyed. Heat level.
Could you release that big spreadsheet you mentioned detailing what weapons belong to which category at current? That would be a question for us.
Oh, hey.
Target acquired.
Hey, Paul, what do you mean it's a question for me? You can handle all this stuff.
Target destroyed. New
Yeah,
target
okay.
acquired.
I'm gonna start
Let me,
giving.
sorry, just, okay, go ahead and tell me. I asked. Go ahead.
No, they're just asking if we could release a spreadsheet showing like which weapons are in which classes, like ballistic, small, medium, large.
Um,
Acquired.
oh,
UAV
yeah, probably, right? I mean, what's the
Yeah.
worst that could happen? You know, you guys will maybe offer some feedback and debate with us a little bit, but,
target acquired.
can you,
New target acquired.
okay, first off, I'd like to
5%.
just, can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
I just wanted to express apologies for being late like this. I was at the office right up until like 10 to 6, you know, just kind of working, having my head down working and thinking I was going to stick around the office until the AMA, and then, you know, all of a sudden I just, oh geez, it's almost 6, I better get home. And so, anyhow, I'm en route, but if you guys can hear me fine, we can do this. So, sorry about that. Hopefully most of you joined in this morning and sounds like a lot of you did, got questions like that one. But let's carry on, Paul. If you could maybe just read one question at a time.
Yep. So Spectre, your question about the spreadsheet is it's a possibility, and we will talk with the people who do this stuff and see if we.
And you pronounce the name. Sorry, the second question was how do you pronounce Paul and my last name? It was Inoue, I think. I'm getting it right?
No,
No, okay.
it's actually Inoue.
There we go. Yeah. And mine is Benoit. There we go.
So the next question here, Russ, is are there the same number of slots in MWO, or how do sides hardpoints affect?
So if this is correct, I think there are the same. Well, the number of slots are generally the same as in MWO. Like we try to follow all the same rules and logic, but there are some things that just aren't in MechWarrior 5, right? Like we don't have the specifics of like hand actuators. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but like some things like that. And you know, when it comes to these hard points, there's some difference between you know, now that we have a large, you know, hard point that is both, say, a Gauss and an AC-20, that means that in some situations you're getting the benefit of some extra slots, or in some situations the opposite. But it's generally, like we mentioned this morning, slots are really not a concern in MechWarrior 5. It's not like MechWarrior Online when you're doing endoskill upgrades and all these things that you are really fighting and scrambling for those slot spaces. We generally find that there's plenty of slots around to kind of put your ammo and put your things that you need.
There's an extended example that it gives, and that's a large laser takes 2 slots and a PVC takes 3 slots. So does a large energy hardpoint use weapon-specific numbers, or does it take up a set number of slots? I can touch on this one because the current plan is whatever the smallest slot requirement is for a weapon of a size hardpoint is going to be overall size. So, for example, an AC-20 takes 10 slots, a Gauss takes 7. All large ballistic weapons are going to take 7 slots. So basically, the AC-20 is getting shrunk in its size requirement. Whatever slots, like actual critical slots for heat sinks and all that stuff, that's going to stay consistent no matter what weapon you swap out with at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. Will there be mass case or coolant flush or or a flush coolant, and how much and how will they be implemented?
Did you say coolant flush?
A coolant flush, mask, and case.
Well, there's no coolant flush at all. I don't believe I'm not sure I can answer the mask thing. I don't believe we have a mask variant, do we? I mean, up to 3049 was there one? So I'm a little ill prepared for that one. I don't believe we have mask. I could be wrong. Coolant flush is easy. We don't have any coolant flush. And case is similar to the way Battletech did it. I think. I apologize if you guys can hear all the people leaving notifications. I can't figure out how to turn that off on my phone. Case is essentially built in to every mech. So the way MechWarrior 5 works is when you get your torso blown off, it will behave as though that mech has case. So what we've done is, if it was a mech variant that actually had case, David on our team has found a way to kind of add some additional value into that mech, an extra, half ton of this, that, or the other to kind of compensate for that, to make it better. But we generally wanted the entire game to have this case-like functionality. Mech survivability, and that ammo cooks off on your torso to have one of your pilots that you're not going to lose that mech right away or anything. But that's the behavior we wanted more. There was other reasons why we went that way compared to, I can't remember now all the design reasons, but that's the way it's going to work.
Okay, Wolfles is asking, is there a stock loadout button in Mechlab that you can return mech back to a stock variant?
Great question. There are some buttons down there around hitting max armor and doing certain things.
There is a revert all, but I'm not sure if that's, I'd have to ask the devs, but I'm not sure if that's going to revert back to stock or if that's going to revert back to last save.
Yeah, that's a great question. We'd have to follow up on. It might do just what they're asking, but we'd have to be 100% sure and verify that.
Sorry, I'm just taking a note here. How does the current Mechlab convey the small, medium, large slot size system? It's going to be a block of, I guess, color, and it's all color coordinated for the weapon type. The sizes, it's a straight up one-to-one comparison. Like when you drag an item off of your inventory, you'll see a colored block that's going to fit the exact slot, hardpoint slot for you, right? So it's very obvious.
Yeah, that's self-explanatory. I think that covers it.
Our friend Imperius, can you add full MWO customization via New Game Plus or unlocked after the main story is completed? That way you keep the original playthrough as you envisioned, and it adds a layer of depth and freedom to the end game.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be a feature when we ship the game. I think we're certainly going to be committed to a certain, even though this isn't MWO and it's not like a 7-year life, 8, 9, 10-year life cycle game like MWO. It's we release it. There will be some level of we hope that the game is successful enough that there'll be certainly some DLC packages, and then beyond that, there's definitely going to be at least some sort of minimum level of ongoing support for the game after it launches, whether that's basic fixes and bug fix patches or if it goes deeper. So that has to be a value add that we'd patch in after the fact. I don't see that we'd want to spend time and resources that we could otherwise be using just to make sure the game is in as solid a condition as it possibly can be in when we ship. But that could be also a target for modders. I'm sure it will be. Mechlab will have lots of mods. Maybe what they'll do is they'll allow you to install that mod after you finish the game, just so you can kind of go kind of crazy after that. But I think what you're saying is that once you're finished and you're continuing to explore the inner sphere, that you could kind of go a little more freeform. Interesting idea, but And the honest answer is,
Target destroyed.
I don't think we'll have that upon upon game release.
Target acquired.
And the next comment I think was targeted at me. He was telling me to breathe and relax because it's kind of panicking here. Okay, so no, me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Not Rash is asking, seeing as we have a mech lab, a dedicated master mechanic, and I'm assuming enough mech parts to fully repair a mech, can we have our mechanic edit, change a hard point for a big pile of cash and time?
New target acquired.
Edit a hard point, as in like make a hard point into an energy one or change something
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
You know, the way that would have to be work in the game right now, the way the game is designed is,
New target acquired.
that would have to be like a custom variant, I suppose, or like, you know, like we hold back a hero chassis and then it unlocks as a on a particular mission or quest,
New target.
and then you know it unlocks that thing. But to take like your favorite mech chassis and say I really want to, you know, turn this energy into a ballistic and stuff like that. No, there's certainly no time to put in that type of functionality for the game. Again, possible mod target or something, but I guess I don't know. There's probably a mech out there then somewhere in the game that does what you're looking for it to do. But I understand the questions. Everyone wants, everyone has their own play style and kind of did their own thing in MWO. I just think that maybe people aren't able to sort of understand, or we've been playing MWO for so long that maybe you won't have the same desires in MechWarrior 5 that you think you will. Once you get in there and start playing around with the mechs there are and going to the free market and buying, you know, shopping and salvaging, and you'll find you're existing in a totally different universe than what you expect your like gaming desires would be. Just might not be the case, but yeah.
Okay, Traveling Buddy asks, how will the mech lab handle owning more than 4 mechs?
How will it handle only more than 4 mechs?
Yeah. I'm not sure what that one is.
Yeah, I mean it handles it pretty, like, you know, there's really just arm waving there. Like you can have up to 12 deployable mechs in your dropship. So it's possible that we find the time to sort of like put some story justifications in there that after you finish, you know, the first act of the story, that there's a, you know, like a secondary, you know, leopard that's there just for like transporting your stuff, and then when you finish the, you know, the second act or the third one, so to justify it. But ultimately, all that sort of hand waving and fluff, the game allows you to have 12 deployable mechs, and that's a very good reason, design-wise, for campaigns. That I don't want to spoil stuff, but like you balancing your metagame to, you know, go deep in the campaign and to be able to handle the contracts that are being offered, you'll need to have a deep stable of mechs. We're trying to balance and design the game to push the player to all have a nice full stable of mechs and pilots, even up to 12, you know, deployable mechs with 12 pilots, maybe more, maybe less. And then there's also cold storage, so you could have additional mechs. I'm not sure if there's a limit on that side or not. And actually, this is all going to be limited by, you know, the time and money balancing too. You know, you may find it very hard to go beyond 12, depending on the player. So anyhow, that's how it handles it. They're just there. There they are. There's, you know, 12 slots to put your mechs in.
Soviet Armada asks, will the location placement of ammo in relation to the weapon location on the mech matter? For example, if a weapon like an AC-10 is located in the right arm, but the ammo is placed in the left leg, will that affect the reload time of the weapon as the ammo is located further away from the component it was meant?
No, it's the same as MWO. You can put your ammo anywhere you want. The only thing that matters is that's where it's going to explode. So people will, you know, get up to their usual tricks. They want to shove it in their head or their legs. Head is going to be a lot less safe than it was in MWO though, because the hitboxes and the heads are bigger. It's not a PvP game, so I would say you're probably not shoving it in your head very often. Since you got the case, best place is probably for in your torsos, or maybe you'll shove it in the legs, but you can put it anywhere you want.
Russell M asks, can you please support going over tonnage with unsaved changes, i.e. dropping a new weapon in, then blocking save until equal tonnage is removed? That would make it much easier for me to...
Sensors online. Weapons
I don't know.
online.
I'm not sure I followed that. He's just saying not being able to like create
Nominal.
builds that are over tonnage.
Yeah, basically is as you're customizing your mech, like you pull some stuff off, you drop some new bigger items on, allowing the player to go over that limit, like the tonnage limit, to just play stuff and then work their way backwards, pulling stuff off to get back to down to...
Honestly, I may even work that way now. I mean, when you go in there, you can go over tonnage, I believe. Like I've seen it go over tonnage when I'm clicking armor and stuff, and you know, so it might be that way actually.
Well, I can get that clarified for these guys later.
Yeah, I'm about 90% sure, but go ahead and do that.
Okay, Snake 509. So with this good change, he put good in brackets, so I guess he likes it. Would you ever field these proposed changes on a forum? Maybe an invite-only forum for MechWarrior 5 profile page to maybe kick ideas around with the community?
I'm gonna say no, and it's not because you don't have good ideas, but
New target
this
acquired.
is not MechWarrior Online, and the only thing I mean by that is funneling a premium game for the marketplace is completely different. We hit a big milestone recently. We've got like 3 months to finish, and it's going to take everything we have. We have to finish this game not only in English, but we're going to do the additional languages. We have to do all the localization, and we have to, you know, get ready for the platform. I mean, it's we're already in a state. With a premium game, when you get into, you still use terminologies like alpha and beta, and all these things, and a lot of them are, some of them are a little bit antiquated because they are more about, you know, traditional manufacturing methods and such, but still, we're essentially in lockdown. Where you have a small handful, like a half a dozen things that have been allowed to go into development beyond, and there might be a few more things that that list, but essentially we're all in lockdown time and all those languages, etc. That's what you have to do. In fact, you know, bigger games like these big games that are shipping, they've been in lockdown for probably twice as long as we've been. So by lockdown, what I mean is they're just bug testing. They're fixing any bugs based on severity, A, B, you know, non-shippable bugs, etc. And there's feature improvement bugs and polish bugs, and this would fall into the category of feature improvement type of bugs that could get approval, and there'd be some small chance that 1 or 2 small feature improvements could be approved if they were simple enough and not risky. So there's just not enough time with 3 months left to put together something like that on the profile page, take feedback, gather feedback, and then put that into implementation in time before the game comes out. So we're gonna have to look to post-release add-ons, and I guess that's a good thing. We need content for DLC. We've got lots of good DLC ideas, but DLC doesn't just have to be the content. Like, it could be like, okay, here's a DLC package with content in it, but there's also, you know, here's just sort of a basic free patch that we're also put out that, you know, implemented X amount of changes and improvements. So we have to look at post-release.
I'm just going to quickly interject with one of my questions. Did you just drive through a tunnel or over a bridge?
Who, me? Did I cut out of it?
Yeah, you went full robot for a bit.
Discord gets like that, but I didn't. Anyhow, sorry about that. Is it okay now?
Yep. Lieutenant?
I'm at home. Sorry, I'm at home
okay.
now, but I'm just gonna chill in the driveway here because, you know, trying to go in and get set up on my laptop or something at this point would just probably take too long. So I'm just gonna sit here in my car and we'll carry on.
Alrighty. Lieutenant Paragor asks, what is the reasoning to balance the Mechlab as such?
Say that again, Paul?
basically he's wondering why what's the reasoning to balance the Mechlab in this way, like with a hardpoint restriction, size restriction?
Well, I've gone into that in depth quite a few times. I did it this morning as well, but I've said it in the past. MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is based around, well, a mercenary playstyle, and also having significantly more freedom than any past MechWarrior Mercenaries game on where you go, who you fight, what contracts you take, when you repair, so on and so forth, who you hire, all those things. And in order for that to work, we felt really strongly that the market and your salvage had to really mean something. When you see a mech in the battlefield and you end up getting it in salvage, and it's a variant you haven't seen yet, and it offers particular play styles that is like really awesome and exceptional and exciting. And when you fly to a particular area and you go to the market and you're surprised to find a particular variant that you're really like and you haven't seen yet, that needs to be very valuable. And the more flexibility you put into the Mechlab, the greater chance you are that you're stomping over variants and these types of situations where people, get particular ones and min-max them and boat them, and then nothing on them. All you do is constantly salvage and sell everything you get in the market, and this exploration kind of means a lot less. So that was our philosophy, and we've stuck to it. And recently we made the change, so we feel like this expansion of sized hardpoint system still keeps the spirit of that alive. And in fact, it was the consensus of a fairly opinionated group of players at the office. We briefly considered basically an MWO style, and what I mean by that is not everything, but just in the way the hardpoints work, like energy's energy, ballistic's ballistic, missile's missile. But this system won out, that it was kind of the best of both worlds, that it still provided the flavor of gameplay and uniqueness that we were seeking, but offered a lot more flexibility and a lot more meaning to this marketplace, to the Mechlab, and allowed you to also deal with situations where your Gauss rifle's destroyed and you don't have one. Well, you can still take the mech out. You can put the autocannon 20 there, and it fixed a lot of those maybe sort of gotchas or holes we would have maybe got the players stuck in too. So for a lot of reasons, it was the best way to go, and those are the justifications and the reasons.
All right, so I have a ghosty that says, so I can't pimp my ride, basically. I think you can. And what Russ just mentioned is how you basically pimp your ride. The next question is from Mr. Maff. What caused the decision to open the hard points up to size instead of being limited specific weapons? I think you just covered that as well. Metal Axe says, will you be able to get more powerful version of weapons of like an AC-20?
Yeah, so we do have the notion of manufacturers and sort of like an increasing quality of manufacturer, I guess the way you could put it. And so it does add an extra level of kind of lore and flavor, but at the same time providing kind of a noticeable upgrade path as you move along. So every weapon type in the game will be like this, and there'll be a handful of levels for all the weapons based on these manufacturers. So pretty happy with the way that's shaping up, actually. So there's more more to do in the Mechlab than beyond just like here's a medium laser slot. There's also considerations when you look at your salvage as to who the manufacturers are, and kind of give you a little more thought process when you're picking your salvage than just like quick, really quick clicking of stuff.
Ghastly asked, does MechWarrior 5's Mechlab still use MWO and classic Battletech system of critical slots and tonnage? Do we also see Endo reserve slots, for example, in the Mechlab, or is this abstracted out? So that's sort of like, I guess, Endo and...
I think the answer is yes, like meaning we still have the notion of tonnage and slots and mechs that are specific chassis still have Endo skill and double heat tank. If I heard the question right, I think it's yes, it's still classic Battletech it's not all abstracted out. In fact, I would say very little is abstracted out. A little bit of abstracting out with these size hard points in that there's some normalization across, say, Gauss to AC20 and how many slots it takes. But that's about the only thing I can think of that sort of like abstracts out like that.
Wolfsteel asks, how will this play into lore? Will we see newer variants of mechs to fit into this new mech?
Yeah, I think it already did. There's, the timeline is 3015 to 3049, so as you move along, you're going to get that mid 3030s range of stuff, and then, just as the Jenner JR7F or whatever, like for a Fibrous version, like when that year comes along, then that Jenner comes out. So that's just an example, but that was already planned. That was already gonna happen with the existing system. I don't think this necessarily affected that. Also, it can provide a little more flavor. So like when you can replace those mech parts with other parts a little more. So I think.
The next few questions I'm going to kind of just skim through because they've been answered. But if you're not, if I don't answer it properly, then feel free to freak out at Tina. Vinco, are there enhanced versions of weapons similar to the HBS Battletech game? And like Russ mentioned, is yes, there are. Old Bob has come back and he's asking for Mechlab pictures.
Again?
Yeah.
Soon. Ish.
K Foxy says, me and my mates are curious. Will the Mechlab be set up similar in slots and usable equipment like MechWarrior 4?
You cut out there a little bit like MechWarrior 4?
Pretty much it is like MechWarrior 4. It just doesn't... Well, actually, it's very, very close to MechWarrior 4. Some of the layout changes that we're looking at will actually really remind you of MechWarrior 4's Mechlab.
Yeah, I think the only real main difference, or the big difference is, unless I'm misremembering, MechWarrior 4, though, allowed you to hardpoint inflate. So
yeah, it would allow you to put like 3 AC2s in an AC20 slot.
Right. Or you pull up the LRM20 and put like, whatever, like 2 10s. You can't do that. So there's no inflating of the hardpoints, but you can, pull up the 15 and put the 20. And I think the better example is, you got your Centurion CN9A and you got your LRM10, but you like brawling big time, so you pull off that LRM10 and put a SRM6 or whatever fits in there. So you can go all short range. So that's a good example, I think, one of the better examples of the extra layer of gameplay that's going to be available now with this new system compared to what it was just, a few weeks ago.
Omniseed is asking, how about a system where smaller size weapons can be put into larger hardpoint, but only in plural amounts? Say 2 AC2s for 1 medium slot, or 2 AC10s for 1 AC20, and MGs. And an AC2 should not be the same size slot type. Also, an SRM6 should not be a large weapon. It's clearly medium or small by tonnage.
Yeah.
So the second part there was just suggestions as to where weapons are going, right? It is still in a state of tuning, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think SRM6 is medium, isn't it? Because my example of LRM10 to 6, if that's true at all, is that, anyhow, I don't have it sitting in front of me, but
the current slot is a medium.
Yeah, so we can debate where things go a little bit, but I answered this morning. There's quite a few comments of like, well, what if you could only put 2, small lasers in a medium, or like some form of hardpoint inflating. And there's probably some design out there in that notion that's okay, meaning that it's like wouldn't throw the game out of whack, wouldn't cause voting to go bananas, and wouldn't destroy the kind of free market system that was our whole goal. But the challenge that any of the designs still have is they're exceptionally difficult to represent in the front-end UI and explain to the player. The design we have, which accomplishes almost all that, but doesn't allow you to hardpoint inflate, it's very, very easy to show someone who's never played MechWarrior before. When they go in the Mechlab, they pull off a medium laser, and it says medium energy slot. And the things on the left that drag over, it's very clear to see what a medium energy slot, what fits in a medium energy slot. So as soon as you get to the point where you say, well, 2 small lasers can go into a medium spot or something along those lines, then it changes everything from an explanation standpoint and an balance standpoint and a million other things. So this is as far as we're going to go with MechWarrior 5. There's not really time to go further. You know, because this change even came in pretty late, it did require that the engineering side was very quick. The engineering side, the reason we decided that we could do it was I think the engineering was like, because we developed the system pretty much to handle this. We talked about that a lot in the past. So I think the engineering was like nothing. It was like a day or something. But you know, the front end rework altogether is still going to take, like everything with front end, it's probably going to, I don't know, a couple weeks overall, right? With like you and talking to Emily and all the things that happen just to make sure that it all visually works. So I think it's as far as we can go with MechWarrior 5.
Gunbucket is asking, will we be able to roleplay as a mech tech? And I'd have to say, if that mech tech is a mech warrior,
Roleplay the mech tech? What do you mean?
he wants to roleplay as a mech tech. So I guess run around in the mech lab,
Oh, I see.
fixing stuff.
Yeah, sure. Do it. You can be like the mech tech guy who's like a warrior.
Ultimo Scorp asks, what was the line of thought that led to the team to go with the current mech lab style? Or okay, so this one's been touched on already.
So I mean, it's just a couple of extra thoughts. The line of thought for us to kind of change it was, and I haven't really said this yet tonight, was there was always this sense, like even over the last several years, as we were kind of living by this design and this idea of essentially variance or whatever, there was always underlying feeling, including with myself and everyone else in the studio, that we probably were going to end up doing something a little more than that. But just because I think there was always a sense of like we need to do a little more in the mech lab, and that the mech lab needs to be a little more interesting, a little more useful, and a little more part of the game. But I think we tried to put it off as long as possible because we wanted the design of the game to come together, you know, the vision of the game to come together as we originally envisioned. And if the mech lab was a change, it would be to something that would still fit within that mentality. And I think that's why we ended up where we are. It's like, well, we did think, well, first off, we've got a few issues. Like, what if someone gets this, you know, rare mech and this rare weapon gets blown away and they can't even fix it? So that was kind of a problem. And then on top of that, the mentality of like, well, geez, it's just not quite enough to do in here. It'd be nice to do a little bit more. And the combination of the two things led to where we went today. So I think we found the ability to take a nice little step here, but for it to still fit in within, you know, the game.
Lancifer asks if there's going to be different weapon flavors, and I would say yes, because it's been covered. King Ronan, I like the idea of this hardpoint restriction reducing the Wild West aspect. My question is, will variants of mechs at least leave some fun, quirky options, like a medium mech with a large ballistic hardpoint? For example, a Phoenix Hawk with a Gauss.
Well, I mean, Centurion BN9H, AC-20, right? A large ballistic hardpoint. Hunchback 4G, large ballistic hardpoint. So yeah, I mean they exist. Some of the variants are out there. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's not. But I don't think we're going to be creating any special variants that just to change those hardpoints around.
No.
Jungle Plague. I've heard tell that there will be different versions of each weapon. Are there going to be notable changes to Lost Tech weapons to ensure that they're not easily eclipsed by improved normal weapons and thus remain special? For example, in HBS's game, medium laser +++ was better than the medium pulse laser.
I see. I'll just say, you know, great comment, great question. Thanks for bringing it up. Now we're mindful of it, and we'll keep that in mind as we're bouncing the game down the final stretch.
Gun bucket again. Will it be like MechWarrior 4 in that things like heat sinks, jump jets, ECM, etc., are just a matter of weight in a checkbox, or will it be more like MWO in respect to critical?
Yeah, in that regard, it's like MWO. Only jump jet mechs have the jump jet slots. You can pull them off if you want. Take 2 instead of 4 and free up tonnage and etc. But you can't put jump jets on like a dragon or whatever. And I forget what the other things he said, but same with those items, I believe.
Phelan Ward Kell is asking, wouldn't it be more dynamic to have the small, medium, large system, but the slot and weight affect what mech can take the unique weapons, i.e. not every large slot could take the AC?
Not every large slot could take what?
The autocannon 20. So a large ballistic doesn't necessarily mean that you can take an AC-20. It depends on the...
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I guess what you're saying is there's ways to make even certain mechs a little more special in some ways because they can take AC-20. But the answer to that question is the same bit, like the same answer I gave a bit ago. Try to imagine how you would represent that in the front end UI. It's a large ballistic slot, but can't take a particular weapon. So that's very difficult and confusing to explain to end users. Think of people that never played Battletech before. They're just like, oh, get it, large ballistic slot. Well, why won't this work? Oh, this is like an exception. So, no, I don't think that would be something we'd do.
Okay, Lieutenant Paragor again. Will we get to drive our mechs into the hangar bay and get out of the mech without a cinematic trend?
No. If you want to expand, we're really did not spend valuable development resources on Star Citizen level. I'm crawling physically in, physically out situations. It's not just not where we decide to spend our resources. Those would be fade transitions. A lot of times you'll fade as you approach, the dropship and stuff. And we're really just got to a point where it's like, there's only so much fun in something, and if it doesn't justify the resources, it's better to spend those elsewhere.
He does have a second question: is will I be able to hire pilots from the free market, or do we get them from capturing AI?
Can you repeat that one, please?
Will I be able to hire pilots from the free market, or do we get them from capturing AI?
You hire them from the free market, almost exclusively. There's an exception, story-based. I don't want to spoil anything. I already did. Damn it. Yeah, free market. You go to the market to hire them, and they can be injured. They can be killed.
King Roan is asking. I don't know if this question has been asked, but how much of the MWO variant library will be coming over? Will it include the clan library at some point?
I honestly don't have that answer right now. It's not part of the initial game. But, there's a wide world of DLC options, and who knows what the future holds.
Well, it's safe to say a large number of the MWO variants, inner sphere variants, are going to be there, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to include pretty much everything we could on the inner sphere side from 3015 to 3049. There's a few exceptions based on a piece of equipment here or there and a few things that so they're not in there, but I mean they're mostly there, yeah.
Snake 509. So in this morning's AMA, you talked about making the game more accessible to people completely unfamiliar with BattleTech MechWarrior at the hardpoint system you plan on implementing. Would you consider developing a difficulty level, for lack of a better term, that could change the complexity of Mechlab economic system after release, of course? I know you are all working.
Yeah, I mean, you took the answer out of my mouth. Post-release, yeah, I mean, I think in some ways that we might find that opportunity's kind of been taken from us. I mean, I'm kind of expecting that modders are going to kind of really jump all over that, and it might not make sense for us to kind of do that as DLC or post-release support because it's already out there. But I think we're just gonna have to play that by ear. You know, we're a small team, so we really won't even be coming up for breath and like starting to gather our wits about us for like being, thinking real serious about what the, DLC content might be until honestly probably mid-November. So we still have a while yet here where we're pretty much just all heads down, and so we'll see. We're gonna have to play that one by ear, I think, a little bit.
So we've got 2 more requests for screenshots, and then Gunbucket has posted a bunch of stuff in binary, so we'll skip that. How much has the new player interaction? Sorry, how much was the new player interaction and influence on the limited Mechlab? What were some of the important factors you considered? Were there focus groups or tests with new?
Focus groups or test? What's that? Test what?
Basically, is what is our plan for new players, and what are the factors that we can?
Well, that's not related to MechLab, but yeah, we actually did some usability testing today. Sometimes you don't have to go too far afield. You go to some people in the office that have nothing to do with the game's development, right? Don't ever see the game, don't ever work in the game. They're taking care of company stuff, and you got family members. So we started doing some of that. There's probably an increased amount of that type of stuff as we go down the stretch here. It's probably the answer to that.
Okay, I'm just quickly reading through this next one. Free roam, as in I don't have any contracts, but I feel like harassing local supply lines in a hunt or different variants, so I can make a Frankenmech, kind of like the clan Omnipods. Will Mechlab allow this? I don't think.
No. You can free roam around and take contracts wherever you want and kill whoever you want to kill, but you're not going to do that with your mechs.
It sounds like sometimes the weapons get damaged and sometimes the mech itself gets damaged. Will there be separate repair times, or can I slot in a spare weapon?
Yeah, if I understood the question correctly, so like your, this and that and all sorts of stuff is damaged, and one of them is your autocannon 10, and some of them your medium lasers, and you have quite a. You can just kind of say repair it all, unless it says like, okay, it's gonna take 22 days, like there you go. Or you can go in there and kind of pick and choose. You could decide to just re-armor and restructure everything, but leave the medium lasers toast. For example, cut down on cost and time, and just get the thing back in the battlefield. There's pretty much, as long as the core things, like you got at least one leg, a cockpit, and a working engine. You can take it in the battlefield, and you can choose to repair it pretty granularly.
All right, we're coming down to the last 4 minutes here, so I'll try to blast through these. Will there be a way to test theory builds, like in testing grounds or
I don't think so. It's pretty much go time. Like, time is money. You got to pay the bill every month. So you're just taking missions. You're paying the bills. There's no time to head into the sim or head into the test map. No, that's my long answer of saying no. Don't believe there is. You test it out in your next mission.
Old Bob's asking, will there be a free cam so content creators can make videos, kind of like what MW?
Sorry, one more time. I was getting distracted by a child.
Basically, is there a free cam in MW5?
A free cam in Mech 5.
Yeah, so people can make videos or whatever.
Oh, well, we have one, obviously for our debug mode and for our testing. So, my guess is that we'll probably just end up, releasing the, the shortcut console command for all the like cheap debug menu stuff, and then you'd probably use that. Probably.
We have this one, might be a little bit too early to answer, but how will the Mechlab evolve if and when the clan DLC comes?
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think I'd have a good answer for you at this point on that. If that ever happened, theoretically it could exist in the exact same form, couldn't it? It would just be, clan, large, energy hardpoint, and away we go. So I'm not sure it would have to evolve. But, I haven't thought all that through yet. So whatever makes you happy, I'll just say that. Like, it will evolve in every way you could possibly imagine it would. And it would be a great day. So I'm happy in saying that for now, and we will just have to deal with that, cross that. I hope I get a chance to answer that question. That'd be great.
Demon Jr. is asking how many mech variants per mech may there be? Any special version?
Yeah, there's anywhere from 3 to 5, 3 to 4 on average, and we have pretty much all the heroes in there too. So, spoiling a lot of shit right now. So, yeah, there's a lot. Most all from MWL. Sometimes one is almost discarded based on its year if it was beyond or something. But the rest.
We have 1 minute left, but there's only like 5 or 6 more questions. You just want to hammer?
Give me 2 more and then I'm gone.
All right. Maybe there could be rare pieces of equipment that allow for building a specific array of specific weapons, like the machine gun array and tabletop, so that there is a unique and interesting way to convert extra small and medium weapons into a permanent high power, moderate heat, short range version of the next larger weapon in this class.
Sounds rad. Can't wait for the first mod to come out with that. Here's a mod idea, sweet custom campaign, reward, something like that. It sounds like that'd be feasible. You could create a weapon called the machine gun array and fit it into a small ballistic spot, and then maybe has the output of like 3 machine guns or something. Like, there's a lot possible, but yeah, it's just we kind of hit our limit on what we're going to be able to put in the game, when we ship it. But yeah.
Can some parts or weapons be damaged permanently, like they can't be fixed and have to be replaced?
Weapons, you said?
Weapons or parts, like for heatsink.
Yeah, in fact, that's the case for all of it. Like, meaning weapons, heat sinks, ammo, all that kind of stuff. Jump jets. Pretty sure I'm not lying at all. All that stuff can be damaged, but all that stuff can be permanently destroyed too. Like, quite often, like that stuff's going to be totally destroyed. You lose your entire left torso, like all those heat sinks, all that ammo, the armor, the weapons on your arm, it's all gone. It's gone permanently. So, the difference is, like, when you're cored, like your engine, like your cockpit, and these kind of things can always be repaired. So the chassis is never a total, like, it just disappears. It's still it might cost millions to see those fixed, but it can be repaired. But things like the weapons, the heat sinks, these type of things, they have to be completely replaced from the market or your inventory.
Right. Raining Fire was the one who asked about the new player experience in MechLab and all that. He was hoping that you'd mention more about the MechLab, or how the MechLab was affected by designing the game to be inclusive of new players. If you want, we can kind of like attach that onto the next AMA, right? Just to clarify it, right? Because it is kind of a big topic, and that's going to take a while to explain.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer probably is that we're very, very difficult to do enough for new players. So we're trying to do what we can where we can with this game, and it's little things like an extremely functional third-person view really helps. That came out in the new user test today. Is just shocking how much easier it is for them to comprehend what's going on with a good third-person camera. So anyhow, yes, thank you. I want to apologize again for being late. Just my excuse is I was just working so hard and I just got lost in the work, making a great game. So thanks again. Sorry I was late, and thank you, Paul, for picking things up there in the first 15 minutes. And I look forward to the next AMA. Appreciate you guys' support and just interest in the game.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, guys.